of Agricultural Sciences and Natural Resources at East Texas A&M University. He is the Dean of the College of Agriculture and a Professor of Agricultural Education. He grew up in a ranch in central Arizona and has worked for some of the most influential ranches in the country. He earned a BS in Agricultural Business from Oklahoma Panhandle State University and an MS and PhD in Agricultural Education from Iowa State. Before beginning his PhD program, he also served as an ag teacher at Marshall in Sulphur Bluff, Texas. He loves agriculture and education, and he thinks of his discipline as the intersection of teaching and learning as they pertain to agriculture. So without further ado, I'll let him take over and entertain us.
Well, thank you for inviting me to come out. I've driven past here about 1 million times on the interstate and have not stopped, but really like the buildings and driving in, and probably hang out a little bit after this to kind of take a look around. So thank y'all for coming. I wanted to just give you a little bit of an idea of what we're up to in the College of Agricultural Sciences and Natural Resources. So I started there in January, so January 2nd was my first day at work, and it has been just crazy ever since. We've been doing so many things and learning so much. It's been like drinking from a fire hose just to get everything going. But we really have started some really interesting new initiatives. But thinking back, and especially since we're here at a cotton museum, thinking back to how agriculture has been the driver of innovation. So when the obvious one that came to mind as I was driving out here today was Eli Whitney and the cotton gin and what that did for the economy in the South, and especially areas like right here. We were talking a little bit earlier, 17 gins within this local area.
Maybe more than that.
More than that even.
Yeah.
So, just thinking about that innovation, and then of course there's other innovations that have come through agriculture. I think about the McCormick Reaper and, John Deere with the moldboard plow. But even going all the way back to like Mesopotamia, the first writing was actually cuneiform writing that was used, and the earliest tablets they found are recording basically grain sales. So agriculture has been the driver of everything else we do in society. And if you think about it, if we didn't have the food and fiber production, we wouldn't be able to have the free time to be able to develop all of the other things that we do as a university, the arts, the languages, the other sciences. So I feel we fill a really important role. Another thing about agriculture, and our college in particular, is that we really are the interdisciplinary college at the university, because everything we do is tied together. Take the cattle production, for example. Well, one of my professors way back when I was an undergrad, he made the statement that, okay, you guys think you're cowboys, but you're not. You're grass farmers. And cows are the harvest for the grass that you're doing. And so even when we're talking about cattle, we've got to tie that back into forage production. We've got to tie that back into soil. We have to tie in the economic impact from everything. So we have different programs in the college. We have ag business, animal science, plant and soil science, and agricultural education, which is the area that I come from. And that's an interesting area, because not only are we doing teacher preparation, I know going back several years to the Buck Hughes days of the college, agricultural education was one of the big components. And it's dropped off a little bit since those days, because a lot of kids are choosing not to go into teaching, for one. But our program in agricultural leadership, education, and communications brings in the program evaluation, program planning, all of those pieces to help put on whether formal or non-formal educational programs. So really, we are interdisciplinary in our nature. I've got a slide presentation with just kind of some things that we're doing. So this is Dr. Desiree DeJuno. He's an associate professor in sustainable agriculture and urban agriculture. And he does a lot of work with hydroponics. So we have a hydroponics lab set up that was grant funded out there at the Commerce campus on the farm, and he's doing long-term research on tomato cultivars in the hydroponics space. And then he has a garden space where he's growing the same cultivars outside so he can make comparisons on the production. He has some tomatoes in there that he's basically just letting go to see how long they'll produce. And they look like young trees. They've got like, you know, they're something else. But we also, so we do have a Dallas campus, 8750 North Central Expressway. So it's, if you try to find the worst traffic in the entire DFW, that's the spot where our Dallas campus is. So, in fact, I was pleasantly surprised to find out there was more to McKinney than the I-75 corridor that I go down when I'm trying to get to campus. But we, on the 20th floor of that building, we have a hydroponics lab set up, and he's doing research in there as well. In fact, I believe that's where this picture was. We have different colors of lighting in there to see if in that controlled environment, inside space, in the middle of a skyscraper in Dallas, having more red light or blue light or just white light, and seeing what his production is from that. So that's some exciting research that Desiree is doing. We do have a cool collaboration with AgriLife Research out at the Greenville Farm, which just north of town here. We've got, give or take, about 160 acres out there, and we're doing wheat yield research on a bunch of different cultivars. And then also we're doing research on different herbicides, different pesticides, and we even share a faculty member, Dr. Grace Ogden, brand new faculty member. She's in her second year now as a faculty. And she's just doing phenomenal things research-wise, grant writing-wise, teaching. She's just fantastic, but her appointment is actually a partnership, and East Texas A&M pays for half of her salary and AgriLife pays the other half, which really gives us the ability to get those caliber of faculty members by partnering with other organizations within the system. We do have, if any of you have driven by south of Commerce where our farm is, you may have seen that building that we've got going up. So it's just over 4 acres under a roof, and we're calling it the Agriculture Multipurpose Center. And this is phase 1 of the project. So in phase 1, we have 2 full-size rodeo arenas. So we'll be able to host our college rodeo right there on campus. In the past, we've had to go to Sulphur Springs to host our rodeo, but we'll be able to do it right here at home. I was just in the building yesterday on a tour with the provost, and we've started putting in the bleachers. We'll have seating in there for roughly 1,180 people. Also, we'll have kind of this alumni VIP party area that will be kind of on the roping chute side of the arena. So any alumni that come to the alumni gathering at the rodeo, you can be able to come in and sit there. And I'll go ahead and say it. I bet our vice president for philanthropy will be hitting you up for some money or something. But I mean, that's what his job is, an alumni. So through those doors beyond that VIP area is the multi-purpose room, and that room will hold 300 people for seminars, events, even courses potentially in there. And we have dividers that we can kind of roll out from the wall. They're like curtains, but soundproof. And that room will divide into 3 rooms that'll seat about 93 each when we get it divided. So that'll be a great space, not only for the college, but for the community and community events as well. Farm improvements, you may have seen the fencing that we've been doing. So the provost, and she's been so supportive of agriculture. I think we're in the honeymoon period because I haven't been here a full year yet, but she just really wants to help us grow and help us do things. And one of the places when we talked was in starting with the look, because people judge you on how you look. I mean, if you look like you know what you're doing, then people will think, wow, well, they might actually have some good cattle because they at least know how to keep the fences up, things like that. So we're really working on that corridor along the highway to make it really look like a well-kept farm, which it should be, because I think about that farm as being the front porch to the university. And when people from out of town or A&M system folks, anybody that's coming in, potential new students, they have to drive right past the farm. So it's a different perspective when you see this nice black metal fence it's actually, we're doing construction on the other side of the road right now. So both sides of the road at the old dairy barn area are going to be that new black fence. And the visual comparison between that and the old white fence that probably looked really cool when they first put it up, but when I came to interview, I'm like, wow, they need to get some nails, right? But I think that visual is really going to help with the perception of what we're doing, because perceptions equal reality. But it's not just about looks. This cow is the Gabriel Rita 0108. So while I don't think she's the first registered Angus cow to ever be on campus, I think probably back in the 1980s, there were some Angus, and I know they'd bred some Herefords for a little while.
I know they were there.
They were there, okay.
My farm connects to yours.
Oh, okay, cool. So, but this particular cow, I bought her this spring, and it was kind of a happy accident. She went way cheaper than what I thought she was going to go. And when this cow, well, keep in mind right now, bred commercial cows are trading $3,500 on up, $4,000, somewhere in that area. Cattle are at an all-time high right now. And when this cow, with her pedigree and her APD numbers, she's in the top 1% of the Angus breed for dollars beef and dollars combined. She's in the top 5% of the breed for the weaning weight EPD, so all of the numbers that we look at. She was at about 4,000, and I'm like, I'll bid on her for that. And we wound up getting her just a little over what commercial cow price would be, and I'm like, well, that works. So, and we just got a heifer calf out of her that is fantastic. So I'll show my Angus pedigree here. So I grew up on a commercial ranch in Arizona and worked, we also ran some Beefmaster cattle out there and worked for a few other commercial places, and then wound up taking a job as a herdsman for Near Farms, which is a pretty innovative herd up in Wisconsin back in like the late 1990s. Did not like the Wisconsin winters because this was up in the frozen tundra north of Green Bay. So when there was an opportunity to move to Montana where it was warmer, I jumped on that. I know it's hard to think of Montana being warmer but it was warmer than Wisconsin anyways. and managed Fairview Angus there for a little while, and then wound up working for Basin Angus, which at the time was part of Stevenson Basin, so it was Basin Angus, Stevenson Angus, and Diamond Dot Angus all marketing together under Stevenson Basin, and we were the largest seed stock producer in North America at the time. In fact, the family even started a registered Angus herd in southern Russia. And so if you ever get a chance to Google the Stevenson Sputnik, that was their efforts to introduce Western Montana style ranching and breed improvement into southern Russia, because there were really their beef industry was the steer calves from dairy cows. So they were working on developing this herd. But anyways, with Rita, she's opened some other doors for us. So we'll be flushing her for embryos, because a superior cow like this will flush, take those embryos, and in our better cows, our better commercial cows, we'll do embryo transplant, put her calves in those cows, and we'll be able to really expand the genetics she's able to offer to us. But that partnership with the community is going well also. So I was down at the ranch where we got her just last week, so at Gabriel's, they're down at Grand Saline. And I've gotten to know their manager pretty well, Andy Wampin, and they are very interested in working with us for internships. And to the point that we're talking about developing a pipeline for internships from our students and really run them through as farm workers for us for a little while, to make sure that they know not to stand in the middle of the gate and some things like that when they're working cows, and get kind of a base level of experience. And then we can send them down to Gabriel's, and they're talking about potentially even building a bunkhouse down there to house a couple of interns at a time. And they can be there, work on the ranch, learn the marketing, the recipient and donor cow management, all of those components of a registered herd, and take their other classes online while they're down there, so that they're not back and forth to campus. So I think that's a really exciting development, and we'll just see. Actually, we have so the reason they sold her, they kept a daughter of hers as one of their recipient, or one of their donor cows. And we looked at a bunch of calves that are out of this cow's daughter, and they have one bull that is in the Dollars beef and the Dollars combined. Not only is he in the top 1% of the Angus breed, he is the number 5 non-parent bull for those two traits. And so that's an advertising thing, that when they're really promoting this bull and trying to sell, partial interest in him, everything they put out, they're going to say that his granddam is the foundation registered Angus cow at East Texas A&M. So we also have Twin Oaks, our farm for experiential learning. Probably most of you remember the old blueberry farm. So the blueberry farm, when I remember it a little bit, so my wife's actually an alum, and I remember in the 2013, 2014 area, they had the U-pick blueberries and U-pick pecans out there, and I've got to admit, ever since I first set foot on campus as dean, just about everybody I've talked to has told me how awesome the blueberry farm was, to the point that I'm thinking they may even remember it as being cooler than it probably ever was. But it's a really neat space. And like I said, if the farm is the front porch to the university, the Blueberry Farm or Twin Oaks is going to be the rocking chair that sits on that front porch, because that's the most easy place for us to interact with the general public, have students come out we just had a group of, I believe they were first graders, came out and did a little farm tour and planted seeds and did some things. We've invested some money there from of course, my budget, but also President Rudin and Provost Dr. Vakahasi have all invested in this area. It had fallen into enough of a state of disrepair that we had to tear out a bunch of the old blueberry bushes and do some work on the pecan trees and do a variety of things. But we're reinvesting that. We've done a lot of brush clearing on the east side. So there's where the house is, and then behind that there was just a whole bunch of brush. So we actually tore that out, and we picked up about another 2 acres just by bulldozing that brush. So we've got a nicer space. There was actually a pond hidden back there behind all of that, so we're going to develop that, and that could be like a picnic area. But keep watching Twin Oaks Farm, because there's going to be amazing things happening there. And in that space, we're focusing on small acreage production and almost kind of the homestead type of production, definitely sustainable agriculture, but garden crops. We have some bees out there now, and all summer we kept one area unmowed as pollinator habitat, had wildflowers planted out there and bees. We're probably this spring, we just have to, anything we do with animals has to go through a committee called ICOOK, which oversees the animal welfare and for anything the university does. And we're waiting for their next meeting, and we should have approval to be able to have chickens out there and possibly develop even where we can sell fresh eggs to the public through Twin Oaks. Doing some remodeling to the house, especially the outside curb appeal of it, but inside as well. That house, it's a great resource for us. So the students actually live on site. The student workers for the farm and for Twin Oaks get the opportunity to have a room in the house and stay right there. So that's another one of the exciting things that we're doing. And of course, we've got the horses. But as far as the vision for where we're going in the future with Casner is, one, keeping in mind our past and the innovation that's had to even get us to the point where we're at, but to really lean in to our interdisciplinary nature and how we fit everything together, and really taking a holistic view of agriculture, even the sustainable agriculture. We've got to keep in mind what's the economic variables in that, and can we help people support themselves economically while still doing innovative and new things. So interdisciplinary, we're actively working on having some collaborations with community colleges. We just sent a proposal to Clarendon Community College way out by Amarillo. I went there in my undergrad through their ranch management program, and quite honestly, I used my Clarendon College ranch management certificate of proficiency more in my job as dean than I do my PhD. It's a valuable learning experience for those guys. But we're going to step that as a 2+2, where they do the ranch management program and they finish an associate's degree, and then they come here to finish out a bachelor's degree in ag business, and that sets them up for ranch management jobs as well as lending in various different things. So that's a piece, is trying to find more students and spreading our reach to serve more students. We're also actively looking at ways that we can serve the community in a little more robust way than maybe we have in the past. We're working towards developing a center for ranch management. One thing we know for sure is there's a lot of cows in this country. It used to be cotton, now everybody's gone to pasture and hay. Lots of cows when I was young. most of the cattle in the feedlot where I worked at when I was an undergrad came from somewhere east of I-35. So lots of cattle in the country, lots of things that are going on. And so having a center for ranch management where we can take a holistic view and do research that actually matters to the local producers in the area, that keep in mind all of the variables as we're looking at ranching. Even wildlife has a role in that. That's one of the areas that we're wanting to move towards. Also, the new building project, so phase 2 is going to be, I'm actually more excited about phase 2. I love rodeo and I did it when I was a kid, but phase 2 is where we're developing more of the educational and lab spaces within that same complex. So in our preliminary plan, we have a plan for a small meat lab, which we can do to teach students how to enter the meat cutting industry, whether on the small local scale or going to work for an HEB or one of the large companies. But that's within the original plan, and we're going to move forward with that. Expanding our veterinary biomed center and having, so that's a bachelor's degree that includes a licensed veterinary technician plus, so I like to think of it as like veterinary nursing, or almost like an RN for veterinarians. And we've had so much success with that program that we have now almost outgrown the building that we have it in. So having a new vet biomed building is one of the high priorities. And then of course agricultural education and ag mechanics lab, classroom space, office space. So we're really actively working to grow and develop. Also at the farm where the current rodeo arena is, we're in talks right now with a pharmaceutical compounding company, and they're interested in research. So they do a lot of human medicine with hormones and like time-released implants with like testosterone that releases over time and that sort of thing. And they're interested in transitioning and developing a sector of their company for animal health. And of course, with our embryo donor cows and the recipient cows, we've got the opportunity to do some research and development with them as we're managing the cycles of these cows to take embryos and those sorts of things. But we're just on the verge of making about a $3 million ask for them to build, and of course they'll name it and everything, but build an embryo transfer center, which would be basically the opposite side of the driveway from the Mary Bonham Horse Center. So that's just lots of ideas. I could not think of a more exciting job to have than to be the dean at East Texas A&M right now at this time, because there's just so much happening and so much support all the way through the president's level here in Commerce, but even A&M system. Lots of things happening, and I'm excited to be able to have a part in it. So with that, do y'all have any questions? I'll try to answer them. Yes, sir.
Do you do anything with community-supported agriculture?
They'll be working on that through the Twin Oaks farm. So
I don't know if your students were going to be growing something that they would sell that way.
they will. We're working through the details through that. As a university, there's lots and lots of layers to things, but we had a meeting just about 2 weeks ago talking about what would be taxable, what would be not taxable, because we'd have to collect tax, like on a gift basket, whereas eggs, they're food, so we wouldn't have to, so just trying to plan that out. But definitely that, and in the Dallas area, we're working with other groups that are doing community agriculture. Bonton Farms would be one of them. The Seed Foundation with Rick Wells, we've started kind of working with them and finding out where our fit is. But in support of community agriculture, we've developed a new, and I didn't even mention this, we have a new graduate certificate that's in agriculture leadership, education, and communications, and it's urban food systems. So it's primarily like urban gardens and community supported agriculture with probably more of an urban focus. But that program, the reason I went with the graduate certificate is most of the people working in that are volunteers, and then you have like the leader of the organization, which they don't need classes in how to grow tomatoes, because I mean, you've got YouTube, you don't need us for that. But they do need help in grant writing and program planning, program evaluation, volunteer management. So that's where that certificate and that ALEC program are contributing. Yes?
Discuss recruitment of young people into the field of agriculture and animal science.
So we do a lot with 4-H and FFA. We just hosted a 4-H horse judging contest just last Saturday. Friday before last, we had 381 students on campus. We'll have 3,500 in the spring. And so that outreach to those two groups are really kind of a good first step. But I think another piece of it is really an awareness. And I, even beyond just recruitment, but just in college in general, a lot of people still think of us as a discipline that teaches farming. And well, if you're going to be a farmer, you can major in agriculture, but if you're going to be an entrepreneur, you should major in business. Well, that's not true. In fact, I'll get in trouble. I'm going to go ahead and say it even though it'll be on YouTube. Generic business versus ag business. So, no, an ag business graduate can do anything that a business graduate can do. But a business graduate can't always have the context to do what an ag business student can do. So I really value the ag business degree, and I think that we, as agriculture, oftentimes we preach to the choir. I think I'm probably doing that right now in this room, that a lot of people have some ag background or some tie in this room. We talk to each other a lot about agriculture and how diverse of a field it is and what we can do, but I don't think nationally we do a good job of communicating just the depth and breadth of careers that are offered. So in that recruiting, and I will hopefully be long retired by the time we see the results of it, but things like bringing those first graders out to be able to see the farm and plant seeds and get that connection with the land and with the ground, I think is going to be part of recruiting people into the future of the careers, and it's really just kind of an awareness thing. It makes me think of Howard Buffett. So Warren Buffett's son, he does a lot of philanthropy. He wrote a book called 40 Chances that I used to actually assign as a textbook in one of the classes I taught. And he makes the point in that book, and the reason for the name is, as a farmer, you get basically 40 chances to get it right. So you have, if you start at 25, retire at 65. I know a lot of us go way past that. A lot of us started way earlier than that. But, that's essentially 40 harvests. And looking at that with how we're recruiting and what our students are, and I just turned 54 the other day, so I've got about 11 harvests left if I retire at 65 from this position. But thinking each year, how can we engage more with the community? How can we have things like Twin Oaks where we're bringing more and more people on campus? How can we move the needle on people's understanding of what agriculture actually is? And so that's where we're going with that.
Talk about the role of women in agriculture today.
Well, they're taking over. Actually, Absolutely. So even if you look at my enrollment numbers, we are roughly 2/3 female, 1/3 male. So and it's interesting, we're kind of right at that stage. So when we look nationally at the numbers, when you look at like the CEOs, C-suite folks at like Bear Crop Science, it's still pretty male dominated. But if you look at kind of that generation after that, we're actually asking the research question in my discipline in Ag Ed, where are the guys? Because they're not going to college, but they're not going out into the trades to the number that we would think they would to explain the drop off in college. There's a lot of guys out there that are sitting in their mom's basement playing video games or something, because we just don't even know how to count. But there's definitely a trend towards more women in agriculture, and as time goes on, from about my generation down, lots of those key people, management, upper level management, are really starting to become dominated by women, and they're doing some exceptional things. Yes, ma'am.
My thought is, do you have an agriculture building that you have classes in to teach people to be an ag teacher?
Oh, absolutely.
Because
So,
you haven't mentioned that part of the world, and I didn't know if it was just everybody goes out.
yeah. So yes, we do. I have, 3 faculty in the agriculture, leadership, education, and communications.
Okay.
And within
No.
ALEC, there's a teacher education pathway. And so they're doing, there's a couple of different routes. So there's the traditional route where they do the student teaching and they do all of the things to become a teacher.
Okay.
We also have an alternative route at a master's level. So what they would do is maybe they graduate with a bachelor's in animal science, then they come back and do their master's and catch some of that curriculum development and some of those courses. And then they can alternatively certify and be teaching. That's actually the route that I took to become a teacher. In fact, that's kind of how I got here. So in 2008, I went broke in real estate, just about bankruptcy, because the entire world collapsed as far as finance and lending goes. I was still in Montana at that time, and I found out I could come back to Texas with my bachelor's degree in ag business and alternatively certified to be an ag teacher. And Marshall, Texas was the first people that would take a chance on hiring me. So I went to Marshall and then wound up at Sulphur Bluff after that for a little bit. But while I was doing that, I did a master's in ag education, and that led to being offered a full assistantship to go to Iowa State and do a PhD in ag education. And my research focuses on experiential learning and teacher education. So we're definitely, I know back in the Buck Hughes days, almost every ag teacher in Texas, I think, came through here. And a lot of people, it's kind of like the talking students into majoring in agriculture. It's kind of a tough sell to be an ag teacher as well. They're just, and I'm noticing more of them are doing like the animal science route and then doing the master's alternative certification to get into the classroom, which I don't think that's all bad, because it gives them a couple of more years of maturity. They get to enter a notch higher on the pay scale. But we've got, nationwide, we've got a real, the numbers aren't looking good for ag teachers. And so in some of the national organizations I belong to, we're putting a lot of effort into, how do we recruit more people into this profession? What does the profession need to look at? Why are people leaving the profession? There was some research, a good friend of mine, Jay Solomon, said we did our PhDs together. he did some research that showed that if an ag teacher makes it past year 5, they're likely to go on to finish out their career. Whereas, most of the attrition happens in years 1 through 3. And if you think about that, I think if we can shift the mindset of students when they enter the teaching profession, because year 1, you're just, a teacher's just trying to survive. Year 2, they might have a little bit, they're getting better, but it takes 4 years for that program to actually be yours, because, those students are the previous teachers. And I think that has something to do with why year 5, they're like, okay, I can do this, because that's all their own students at that point.
Thank you.
Does our new chancellor have an ag background?
Not like, as far as I know, not like growing up on a ranch ag background, but he's super supportive. I did have a really good conversation the other day with the chairman of the Board of Regents, and he has enough of an ag background growing up on a ranch in South Texas that he knew it wasn't what he wanted to do for a career, so it was real experience. But we had a great conversation. They seem to be super supportive. One thing that I've heard from both of them is the regional institutions, so us, Kingsville, WT, we need to focus on our own backyard. And hearing that from the top level, that was exciting to me, because I'm here because I wanted to live in, okay, here's a little story for you. How many of y'all know Dr. Bob Williams, that's been at Commerce for 1,000 years, something like that? So he was starting to get older. And when I was teaching, and he grew up in Sulphur Bluff, and I'd gotten to know him. My wife had classes with him, the whole thing. And when I had the opportunity to go do a PhD, I thought to myself, Bob's getting older, and he's going to retire. And if I've got a PhD in Ag Ed, I can come back to Commerce, and I can be faculty there. So I went to Iowa State with the plan to want to come back here. Things worked out differently than I planned, and Bob still works for me, but it's definitely by choice. Yes?
How many animals do you currently have?
We're about 93 cows, and we've got those split into a fall calving herd and a spring calving herd. Fall calving herd's calving right now. We've got 3 sows out there, so we're kind of redoing our pig thing a little bit, but we should be able to be raising some 4-H hogs too pretty soon. Goats, we're about to buy about 10 more goats to put in. We've kind of reconfigured that. And then, of course, the reason we're down to about 93 on the cows, we cull really hard right now, because even the terminal cow market, which using huge words, but even just cull cows are bringing more than they've ever brought before. And so if you're going to cull cows, cull them when their prices are high. Like, more money's better than less money. So we really dug deep into them, but we're going to be replacing those. This fall I'm bringing in, so we've got our Angus side, and that's where we're going kind of with the fall herd. The spring herd I'm working with King Ranch. We're going to buy our first 20 from them of the American Cruise breed and use that to develop our spring herd. So we'll have an American-based herd and an Angus-based herd, and we can do comparatives across the two. But it's also exciting to be like dipping our toes into some future collaborations and stuff with King Ranch.
How many horses?
Horses? Oh, I don't have a good count. We've got about 10 that we use for class that the college actually owns, and then we've got 4 more the ranch staff uses that are kind of separate from that. And then we have boarding for a whole bunch of horses out there that students can board their horses. And of course, rodeo team, we've probably got 100 rodeo team horses kind of stashed out and about around there. Yes, ma'am.
My two daughters, one lives in Northern California, the other one in Oregon. One teaches at a classical Montessori school, the other at a public charter school, but they both have farm schools connect right there with
Oh,
them.
that's cool.
And the chickens, the ducks, hogs, they've had hogs, goats, and even horses. And both of them have said it is so vital because all the students work the farm, they sell the stuff at the Saturday morning sales,
Yeah,
and it's so good. It's so many of the kids have gone at the Montessori school. My daughters have veterinarians
yeah,
say, this is what I want to do. The other go into ag ed. It's really nurtured that in the kids, and I would love to see that come to Texas. And I know we have public schools, but one's a public charter school, and it's just, the community is very proud of the whole thing and what their kids can do. One of the girls at the Montessori school made the Olympic equestrian team from working with her horse and then the horses they had at the
Yes.
school. And she now is through and is teaching, but you know, all that part, the agriculture part, along with learning Latin and Greek and at the one
Yeah.
school, I mean, it's still tugged at their hearts.
yeah.
Is there something we can do with getting farm schools in our elementary, junior high schools? Because the kids really, they love it. They love the time out there, because sometimes classrooms I gotta get out of here, you know?
Oh, we've just got to rethink all of education. That's
Yes.
going to get me in trouble too.
Yes,
Will help.
no, it will, but it has worked so well in both of my daughter's schools' experience.
Well, some of my research, like going back to grad school, John Dewey said that all education is based on experience. However, what matters is the quality of that experience. And the focus, it's interesting because we have a focus, and East Texas A&M in general is really starting to focus on having more experiential learning. And my comment that I make to people is like, what took y'all so long in agriculture? We've been doing that, let's see, since Farming Woman, teaching her first daughter how to plant a seed. You know, we call her Farming Woman because in the hunter-gatherer societies, that was probably a gender role, but you know, agriculture has always been by experience, going back. You know, the Garden of Academic in ancient Greece, they met and they talked about things like agriculture and biology, and then they dispersed to teach people. So, you know, the land-grant institutions all the way along. And so sometimes I'm in meetings and people will talk about experiential learning and preparing students for jobs. I'm like, you mean y'all haven't been doing that? No wonder we're having so much trouble. But yeah, I've got another question over here.
What's your favorite horse's name?
My favorite horse's name. I don't have him anymore because he got old, and unfortunately he passed away from old age as a 27-year-old quarter horse. But his name was Moon. Registered name was Wendy's Moon, and he goes back to some King Ranch breeding. But I got him as a 3-year-old, and that was back when I was a cowboy. And let me tell you, that horse could buck. And he would spook at everything. And so I would ride him, and every time he'd spook, I'd make him kiss it, just to ride up. And then he got to where he's like, okay, I don't want to get any closer. You could see him watching it with his ears. Have you ever seen how horses watch it with their ears? So he's watching it with his ears, but he's like, I'm not going to spook, I'm not going to spook, I'm not going to spook. So, but yeah, Moon was my favorite horse of all time. Yes, sir.
Kind of following up on her comment about teachers. There's a lot of homeschoolers here. And a lot of homeschoolers have chickens and cows and all of those things.
Yes.
And they experience raising the chickens and the cows and the whatever else. And so is the fact that they're not going into a university setting based on the fact that I already got the experience I need, I don't need to go to school for that.
Yeah, there might be that perception, but I think there would be some things that I would counter that with, that homeschool students, they have a super foundation, but there's a credentialing piece depending on where they're going. If they're just gonna come back home and run the family farm, they're fine. If they've learned, they probably don't need a lot of the lower level information, but when it comes time to start doing the research and doing the statistics and doing those components, while they've gotten a great start, there's still a reason for college education.
I
So,
don't
yeah.
disagree with you, but how do you
But how do we get
reach
there?
them to say, yeah, you've got part one,
Yeah,
here's part 2, 3, and 4.
I know one of the ways, and we need to build this, and we're gonna build it, especially here in Hunt County. There's a lot of the homeschool kids are pretty involved in 4-H. Not all of them, but a lot of them are. And 4-H through AgriLife, and great program. I'm a product of 4-H myself back in the late 1900s. But we have a new extension agent here. I don't know, have y'all met Ian Zarang? I would invite him to come here at some point. So Ian, I've known him forever. He's originally from Sulphur Bluff. He's a graduate of East Texas A&M, and when he graduated, he taught with me at Marshall for his first year before I left to go up to do my PhD. And I think he started in maybe May, but he's our county extension agent here. And so, I taught his brother, I know his parents, we're basic. In fact, it was a little tough on me. His 2 little kids call me Grandpa Rank, and I do not feel like I'm grandpa material. But working with Ian, I hope we'll be able to reach out and have more contact with more of those students.
Do you have a date for grand opening of the arenas?
So the construction superintendent told me yesterday they're on schedule to be done and hand me the keys on February 1st. And I pushed her a little bit, and she said she's hedging. She's wanting to get mid-January. And I'm out there enough that I just tease her anyways. So it'll probably be February that we'll have a grand opening event out there, and probably do like some barbecue or something, and then have the rodeo students out there doing just kind of an exhibit and doing some roping and having a good time.
Have you had interest from associations that might want to utilize the facility, since there's been nothing like that available?
Oh, we've got lots. So we've actually contracted with a management group, so it's the same group that'll be managing the complex for the court sports, the one they're building behind the Buffalo Wild Wings, which I hear the soft opening is on Friday. But the same firm's going to manage both buildings. I've carved out an exemption so I don't have to rent the building for myself for rodeo or other events. But they're going to be, they're the same group that manages the facility where we hold the National Finals College Rodeo up in Wyoming. And they're connected in like the reining world and the roping world. And so the direction to them is just don't ever let it be vacant. And the proceeds that come to that, it's revenue generating, and a chunk of that money comes back to my budget for me to be able to do more student-facing things like supporting judging teams and getting them out on the road a little better. And scholarships are important, but just a lot of those extracurricular type things for students, we've got a revenue stream now where we can start supporting that a little differently. Yes, sir.
Where's the quail research?
So
Didn't you?
The Quail Center is basically across the road. It's actually run kind of as its own entity, and actually through the president's office. So, but the Lions Center, they're in construction on that. Kelly Reyna is the director. He's doing lots with it. We are looking at potentially hiring a faculty line in the College of Agriculture and Natural Resources that would be a waterfowl ecology and management specialist PhD, so that we can, right now it's basically Kelly and the quail, but if we can have another faculty line in there that's doing waterfowl research, and I've already reached out to Ducks Unlimited, and we've had some good conversations about them helping us track down just the right person. We can expand to all game birds out there. Sir?
I just wanted to mention, you talk about all the different type of things that you're doing and so on and so forth, but I started hippotherapy and therapeutic therapy in 1957, and I did it all these years in Connecticut, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, and over here, and using the horse for any type of
Yes,
physical
sir.
defect to the human being. And there's so many advantages on every forward motion that the horse takes and so on.
Absolutely.
Like that. It's just an amazing thing. And I think something like that might be good to work with.
You'll be glad to hear this. We have an equine science program, and we are currently developing an undergrad certificate. So a certificate is 4 3-hour classes, and it'll be an undergrad certificate, not quite hippotherapy, but equine therapeutics, which is like the subset, a little simpler, I think. But my equine science faculty member, he has a passion for veterans and is specifically disabled veterans. And so he is already has a group of veterans that are going to horse shows on the national level, very competitive. One of them just won up in Oklahoma. I think it's the American Snaffle Bit Association. But we're going to pair Intro to Equine Science, so that's the general horse course, and one of the riding courses, so either beginning, intermediate, or advanced equitation, which, depending on where the student's skill level is, we'll just line them up, appropriately. And then taking a course in physical therapy from the College of Education and Health Sciences, kind of a physical therapy course, and then probably like a developmental psychology course, and put those all together into that equine assisted therapy certificate. So we're thinking about that for sure.
Thank you.
Have you ever met Nathan Wells?
No, I haven't.
So great guy. He's doing phenomenal things with our equine program.
Yeah. Well, I had all the different types of physical problems, and they bring them in from New York, and they can't get up or they can't get out of the chair or this or that, and I bring them and get them to the horse and so on, and then within 30 minutes of the horse's forward motion and the movement left and right, he's getting a full exercise.
Other questions? Well, thank you very much for having
Thank
me.
you.
I'll hang out and we can visit a little bit.
Thank you so much. We really appreciated it.
Yeah.
And let's see, next month's program is going to be Gary Slinkard. He is going to tell everything about geocaching, if any of you know anything about that. He is also the one who He has like a podcast that he does with geocaching that I think now has 45,000 subscribers. I mean, huge. And this is how he was one of the main people involved in starting these new geocache where we are the only site in Texas. There's one in each state where we have a special cache. And so since it came live in January, so we've had a lot of people in for that.